Hello, this video is going to show you how you can use a portion of the screen or an object as a start button. So if you take a look at this project, we have a world, that's the farm. We have several actors, and underneath decorations as a subclass, we have the start button. So when you click on the start button in this particular game, it will go to a different screen and it will start the scenario. So that's what we're going to take a look at how that is done, okay? So if we look at the code in the start button, when we pull that up, we're going to see that it creates and actually it runs for it's running all the time in the background, so that's why it's in the act cycle here. And its only purpose is to capture a mouse click. So when we click on the start button, as long as we click, that's what this mouse not equal to null does. When the mouse is not null, in other words, when the mouse is clicked, then we're going to start the game and then they're going to remove the start object. So the key thing to kind of look at here is that they're using this farm.startGame. So that's telling me that I'm using the farm object and that start game is the method that's being executed. But before I can pull in or use farm, this is the code that's kind of the secret up here. If you take a look, they have to create an object of whatever world you're working with. So this world over here is named farm. So I'm creating a farm. Capital farm is the class. Lowercase farm is the object, and it's assigned to a world, and I just do the get world method, but please note you have to cast it as a farm. So whenever you assign an object to a type, they have to match. So I have to have a farm type, and it has to match to assign it to a farm. So in this particular scenario, then, or this module, they also use the mouse info. And so if I'm going to run things based upon a click event, you have to use mouse info. And they create a variable called mouse, and that's what they check to see if it's been clicked. So you're going to need basically kind of these two lines of code. One to capture or get whatever world you're working with, and then the other one to use as a mouse. Okay, now the other thing that we have to pay attention to is it doesn't just automatically start the game. Start game is a module that they wrote, whoever wrote this project, and it's in the farm class. So we're going to go look at that next. Last thing though, before we go off of this screen, is to take a look at, then they removed the object. And so they're removing the start button basically from the screen. And so that's what they did last after the mouse was clicked. So let's go ahead and take a look at the farm class, which is actually our world. And if we look at our world in the farm class, I want to look for the start game method, which is right here. This is how they actually, quote, start the game. And so this method is what's called from the other, from the start button or from the other screen, okay? This particular person chose to keep reusing basically the same background and placing different objects rather than actually creating different worlds. So when they start the game, they do this whole entire setup here, okay? And so another thing that they do on this particular game, and I don't actually remember how it's played, but I think we have to go to the farm over here. And so when I entered the farm, that was that little top left-hand corner, it brings me to a different setup. The way that they did that is, again, they're not using a separate world, but they are using a different like background. So, or an object. They created a class called garden down here, but it's not a separate world, is how they are doing that. And so when you reach that section of the screen, then they decided to create one of these objects called garden and then send you to the garden. If I pull up that code again, give me just a moment here. So we look at the garden code. The garden code, when a garden is created, it sets a Greenfoot image, and this is another thing that some of you guys were wanting to know is how to scale an image, and this is how to do that. You do image.scale, and then you set it to whatever size that you want, and then they set the image. And so the main objective of this video was to show you how you could use the start button. But then if we go back, and I'm going to post this code so you guys can take a look at it. If we go back, you can see here how they're adding a new garden, they add a new well, etc. And so they're adding those, and they're maybe not visible to start with. And then that is it for their start game. So they add these objects even though you don't see them all. Or actually, that might be the garden up in the upper left-hand corner. It's not the second screen that we went to for the garden. Okay? All right. So just a little quick review. This particular game, if I hit reset, there's a start button here. When you click on that start button, after you click run, it brings you to this world and it sets this garden and these other objects on the screen. If I want to move to a different section on the screen, this particular game is set up to, if my person gets close to this garden over here, then they move to a different screen.